Welcome to the next episode of the Iowa Girls Wrestling Stories podcast, now partnered with Chain Wrestling and now available on IA Wrestle. Today's featured guest is Riley Cole. If you were at the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union State Wrestling Tournament last week, you probably heard her announcing and calling girls to the mats. And we've never actually sat down and talked before, but how are you doing today, Riley?
Doing really great. Excited to talk about girls wrestling and just kind of reflect on the past week and just all sorts of things with wrestling.
Yeah, it was a really fun tournament. I'm still kind of recovering both mentally and physically from that week. I'm sure you are very busy that week. But do you have the best seat in the house, or are you too busy to actually get to sit and watch?
It's pretty fun. I mean, we're definitely, front and center to the action, which is awesome. I think one of the funniest things is my co-announcer Dort Mayab and we were, like, oh, we got to watch for this wrestler. But then we'd be talking or doing something, and the wrestler would be getting her hand raised, and we're like, oh, dang it, we'll have to catch her next time. So, but it's fun just to be able to see all the wrestling and. The greatest thing is when a wrestler runs by the head table and they're all excited about a big win, Obviously, you see some tears for the hard-fought losses too, but just seeing a lot of the emotion that the girls put into the sport is probably one of my favorite parts for sure.
Yeah. How many years have you been announcing at the tournament?
So I've been announcing since 2020. So I actually started when it was still at Waverly Shell Rock High School.
Okay.
That's kind of how I got started in public address announcing was I reached out to the Waverly Shell Rock AD at the time, Dave Litter, who is also a wrestling official,
Yeah.
and just asked if there was any needs for extra help for the girls' state tournament because I had moved to Dubuque. I used to live in Waverly.
Okay.
Um, so I covered the first one in 2019 for the Waverly newspaper. And then, so 2020, I wasn't in that position anymore and just asked, thinking I'd be working a table or, selling t-shirts, whatever it might be. I just had an open weekend and wanted to be involved somehow. And I think he actually asked me to sing the national anthem. And I told him, I was like, nobody wants that. So let's figure something else out. And he said, how about announcing? So I started to do that and then kind of moved with the tournament as it moved to Extreme Arena in Coralville. Um, a family friend of mine is Bob Murphy,
Oh,
who was one of the big leaders with the Iowa Wrestling Coaches and Officials Association. We're both from Manchester. And so he kind of helped, ensure that I would be able to continue announcing, which has been really fun. So we've just been able to grow with it ever since. And then I think the first year that the IGHSAU sanctioned it was when I switched announcing partners to Dort. And she's fabulous as a co-announcer and does the Iowa women wrestling meets. She does Iowa women's volleyball. So that's been really great to get to learn from her over the past few years and have that bond with her. And I think we definitely want to make it as special of an environment as possible. So.
yeah. So you saying that you were at the very first one. I was also at the very first one. Just amazing growth. What from that first one, right around 100 girls, and it would have been bigger had it not had the horrible storm.
Yeah.
But what's some of the things that you've seen throughout the years that have just been kind of special about this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, seeing it start as truly like a labor of love. I mean, there were a lot of coaches, a lot of people in the right spot to help get the girls a state tournament of their own. But just seeing, obviously, the growth in numbers is great. But for me, I was even talking to somebody about it last week, just the amount of um, improvement that the girls have made. We're seeing a lot less injuries than when they first started. You're
Yep.
seeing a lot more wrestling technique, which has been fun to watch that development too. And you see a lot of really strong wrestlers that have gone to camps and, extra open gyms or open mats and, just really getting involved in the sport. And I think that's kind of been the most fun is that I think we're almost, kind of getting to the point where there's that strong competition like there is in the boys' side. And I think that is just awesome to see I mean, they had to put in a lot of work to get to this point. And
Yes.
a lot of coaches had to stay with them. I'm sure it was really hard, like to a wrestling coach that's been around it for a long time, like teaching a lot of basic moves was probably like really boring for them. But I mean, a lot of people just had to stick with it, and just seeing just the tremendous growth in how they've developed as wrestlers, I think is awesome.
Yeah, that very first one, there was some teams that, like, I believe Denver created their team 2 or 3 weeks prior to the
Yeah.
competition. They
Yeah.
threw everybody together. Here's a quick seminar on how to wrestle. And I told Aaron this one the first time we were talking about the girls' state tournament. That very first year, I was coaching for South Central Calhoun at that year, but Kingsley Pearson had a young lady, but they weren't sending a coach, so I coached for Kingsley Pearson. I sent my work and
Okay.
my stuff in. Um, Hinton didn't have a coach that was able to go, so I sent my stuff in. I coached for Hinton, and actually Cedar Rapids Kennedy also didn't have a coach, so I coached like 4 teams. And
Oh
she's like,
my
"You did
gosh.
not," and I was like, "No, yeah, I did." She's like, "You can't do that." I said, "Well, we did it," because it was just a different
Right.
time. And that was one special thing about girls wrestling, I think, is that we kind of all pitch in a little bit and help each
Hmm.
other out, and maybe more so than on the boys' side of the sport. Yeah, you were saying the level of wrestling, amazing, just
Hmm.
amazing to think where it's come from in the last 5 years, 5, 6 years. It is just amazing. So,
Definitely.
I was going to talk a little bit about just the tournament itself, and maybe from your perspective. I am online a lot, and I watch comments, and I try not to get too involved in those things, but sometimes I hear things, and
Hmm.
I just was going to see what your thoughts on. Um, what do you think about the venue down in Coralville?
Yeah. I obviously very humble beginnings at Waverly Shell Rock High School. That place was full.
Yep.
Extreme Arena is full, selling out. I think it was Friday morning. I'm pretty sure we reached close to sell out, or we did set or Friday night.
Yep.
For me, I think it's interesting with the two class dynamic this year because there was definitely more people in that 1A session on Thursday than there
Hmm.
was. But I mean, we still had 3,400 people there Thursday night. I think Extreme Arena, the facility team there does excellent work. I mean, they're pros at running wrestling events with Soldier Salute and all the other tournaments that they bring in, the Donnybrook and different things like that. Um, I don't 100% know that we're ready for like a Wells Fargo or whatever it's called now, Casey Center.
Yeah.
Um, I think we definitely can get there for sure. I think it's just getting people to see girls wrestling is here in Iowa, giving them a reason to come to a meet or come to a tournament and support the girls. Um, I think the two session classes this year was pretty interesting. Um, just in the number of schools, I think that'll be interesting to see how that shifts in the coming
Yep.
years too. Um, but I think in terms of the arena, I'm a fan of Extreme Arena. I think it's a great place. Obviously, quite a few schools do have to travel to Coralville.
Yep.
Not being as centrally located as like Des Moines or somewhere like that. But um, I think it's a great venue that does well every year and always tries to create the best environment for girls wrestling.
Yeah, I enjoy the venue. I do not, and whatever it's called now, Wells, Casey's.
Hmm.
I'm not a big fan of it because I grew up in the vets days, where we're right on top of each other. The shift on the floor as matches happened, the all general admission seating, and things would just, people would move out and other people would move in. I like the loud environment, and I
Hmm.
just don't know if going into I don't think being sold out is a huge problem. I think that's a
No.
good problem to have, you
Well,
know.
yeah, for sure. I mean, just in the past 2 years alone, when it's been sanctioned, they've sold out at least one day,
Yeah.
and I think people are obviously picking up on girls wrestling being a strong sport in Iowa. And it's always great to hear a sellout crowd. And, when we're announcing at the beginning of a session, and we have music playing and people are trying to dance to it, people are getting excited and really trying to put on a good event for the girls and just know that they're supported
Yeah.
as they get ready to wrestle. So,
And that having a 2 sessions, I love that this year because I actually came back for the 1A session, and I was a little shocked because I was just figured I'd drive in like I did in the morning.
yeah.
No, I ended up parking is at the Hyatt at the end. I ended up parking on the third level of their parking garage. It was the
Oh,
only
wow.
spot I could find. but I actually got to sit down and watch wrestling for the first time. Usually we're so busy running around, we're in the back room getting people ready for matches,
Hmm.
things like that. So I sat down and it was so much fun. I got to sit with Allie Joe Jabrock for a little while.
Oh yeah.
I sat with Matt Daniels from Cedar or Council Bluffs AL, Dustin Rowland from Ankeny, and we got to actually sit and watch wrestling and talk about wrestling. So it was really fun. Um, what did we were talking about the level of matches and just some of the matchups. There was a ton of upsets, and
Hmm.
people just maybe didn't know. Um, you also do some you cover girls wrestling and
Yeah.
stuff, so you know names. What were some of the things that you were like, wow, I can't believe that happened, or yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many upsets that first day, especially. We'd print out the bracket after, a weight would get done and have the updated bracket and it'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I think there's a 12 seed in the semis in 2A." Just it was just awesome. I think the girls truly came out and wrestled, with no fear and just gave it everything they had. If I had to pick a an upset that I was pretty surprised about. Oh gosh, there's so many good ones. I would probably definitely say, Anna O'Rear from West Delaware. Great kid. I was able to cover her this year earlier on. And she, upset the top seed as the 5 seed by a fall to get into the finals and be West Delaware's first finalist.
Hmm.
So that was pretty exciting just coming from West Delaware and seeing her reach that mountaintop for her. Unfortunately she got runner up, but such a great accomplishment for her to be one of our first medalists that we've had in girls wrestling. Her and Kylie Shoup did a great job. I think, in terms of upsets, I think the biggest thing there is the girls that have to come back and wrestle all the way back to third. I mean,
Uh-huh.
they can go home and think, "Oh, I just got third place," but I mean, they had to battle all the way back from a really tough loss, especially if they were, a 1 seed. I think of like Lynn Mars, Kate Siri. She
Yep.
had to wrestle all the way back in her bracket, and that's no easy feat because you have to overcome all the mental side of it, and just get back up and ready to wrestle. And kudos to all the girls that do that and wrestle back even just to get on the podium, after losing earlier on. I think there's a lot said about those girls that are able to do that. And just, yeah, again, go home with a medal is a great accomplishment, no matter if it's 1 or if it's 8, you still had to work your butt off to get to that spot.
Oh yeah, this year I said that over and over. If you're on the podium this year, wow, you did an amazing job. And honestly, if you made it down there this year, wow, you did an
Right.
amazing job because there was a lot of girls who really probably ranked girls.
Yeah.
They got third at the regional, upset at the regional, didn't make it.
Hmm.
And I know that happens on the boys' side all the time, or
Yeah.
you get into a really tough regional, but this year being the first time we went down to two qualifiers, it was, I think I had four or five girls that got third this year, and I really struggled that day. I will be real
Yeah.
honest with you. It was tough
Yeah,
for me.
that was definitely interesting to watch. I was at the Jefferson Regional, so Class 2A, and I think they said at the beginning there was somewhere around 30 ranked wrestlers. Well, when you do the math, only 28 get to go. So two ranked
Yep.
wrestlers aren't even getting to the state tournament.
And I got
Um,
it sent to me today, and I'm going to look while you're talking. I got it sent who all which regional 2A actually had the which place winners. And I'm
okay.
I'm going to try to look and see here. Jefferson had 15 place winners, which is I think the most was 16 out of South Tama, but
Okay.
so Jefferson and Indy and Mason City and South Tama and Raccoon River had 15 and 16 place winners out of that. That's a
Hmm.
lot of place winners to come out of that regional. I was at Lewis Central. We had 13 place winners come out of Lewis
Okay.
Central. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
that's
wild.
nuts. Yeah.
The regional
So
competition was just crazy because, they're used to going top four, and it's
mhm.
just, when you cut that down, you don't realize how much of a difference that makes. But, you know, they didn't really
Yeah.
even necessarily have a chance for like a true wrestleback, from third. they did, but if similar to the boys, it just
Yeah,
doesn't
sometimes you don't always get that.
happen. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was definitely different. I'm kind of crossing fingers that maybe we make some adjustments and it is top three like the boys. We'll have that meeting here coming up soon, and I'm sure that's
Hmm.
what most of the coaches want. But yeah, it's something I'm looking for. Um, I want to look at fan experience versus athlete experience of that tournament
Hmm.
because I know that I hear the fan experiences online maybe don't match the athlete experience. From what you see, the girls' union, in my opinion, they put on one heck of a tournament. I don't know if there's another tournament in the country that highlights the Iowa girl, or obviously other states are going to highlight the Iowa girl, but highlight the athletes as much as the girls' union does with the signing of the brackets, the back room, the big pink chair, all those little details that you don't see anywhere else. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on how the girls' union run a tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would say I would definitely start off with kudos to them for, they had to step up and learn, how to really run a well-run state tournament. And I think that's always been at the forefront of their minds. They've always wanted to do it the right way. I think it took some time to get there. I think this year, bringing in the fire and the smoke and all the lights and all that stuff, I think it just goes to show how much girls wrestling is valued in Iowa. If they didn't see the value in, being a prominent sport, then, who knows what they would do in terms of, fan experience. But I mean, even in between sessions on Friday, Dort and I were going through, making sure, timing wise, like pronouncing names and, getting all the lights figured out with the arena staff. And, I think everybody that is part of the facilities team or even just, our tournament administration team just want it to be the absolute best because obviously we all love wrestling, otherwise
Yeah.
we wouldn't be involved in it. But just making sure that it's memorable for the girls because to get to Friday night is a huge honor. And I think just seeing all of the work that they put in, from, the IGHSAU staff to arena staff in between, taking down mats, putting down new finals mats, bringing in LED screens, the pink carpet, all sorts of things. I think it just went to show how awesome girls wrestling is and just was one heck of a night for sure.
Yeah, I think the big I've heard the two complaints I hear is wow how we need to be at a different venue, and we've kind of covered that already. The other was the live stream, and
Hmm.
I heard quite a few comments about the live stream. Obviously, I don't watch the live stream because I'm right there.
Yeah.
Um, Heard bring in Iowa Public Television. I don't know if we I don't know. They need a lot of room to bring in Iowa Public Television. And one of the parts of that tournament that I really love is that it's not just the finals matches. That third and fourth and fifth and sixth place match is still highlighted that night. And I think
Hmm.
that's pretty special. I don't know if that happens if we bring in an Iowa Public Television to broadcast that. So any thoughts on I don't know if you have any expertise in that
Yeah.
department. Mine is I don't know. Maybe I Wrestle does it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I definitely think, with everything, there's going to be room for improvement. I know for a fact that the IGHSAU will take that feedback and use it to only make the tournament better. I mean, you
Yeah.
saw from last year's tournament to this year, even just the difference of things that they've done for the girls, or, obviously with the two classes, a whole different schedule. But I think the big thing in terms of the whole streaming concept is, just getting more eyes on girls wrestling, I think will be huge. Once people kind of catch on to the craze, I think they become wrestling fans for life. I know that's what happened to me, long time ago. But I mean, I think just giving the best possible product to Iowans, I think is great because, I mean, even in the Class 1As, a lot of these little itty bitty schools, if they have a finalist, that community should be able to tune in and watch her,
Yeah.
compete for a gold medal. I think it's definitely a good opportunity for us to look at and reevaluate how we can best make girls wrestling available to people. I think one of the best things is that they stream the entire tournament. Whether or not Friday's stream was great or not, that's, out of the question, but you get to watch all of the matches. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily offered in other sports or even other states that have girls wrestling tournaments. So I think it's kind of just a mixture of both. We know there's room for improvement, but we know we're also in a good spot above a lot of other sports and places.
Yeah, I won't even mention which states these are, but I travel around the country with girls wrestling, and one state near us, actually, the first couple of years, the state association picked who went to the state tournament. It had nothing to do with a tournament.
Oh
It was
my.
just they went off of records and things like that. So most states, the girls are in the same state tournament as the boys. I suppose you could argue that that's, good, bad, indifferent. I think having the standalone tournament is by far the best option. I've stood next to college coaches that go to California and Texas, and they even when we were in Waverly, I a coach commented that this is the best girls state tournament he's ever been to, and that
Wow.
was and he had been to California State girls state tournament. So, for all those things, I think that I'm just impressed and I'm excited. Then I do want to talk about your cohort in the announcing world there. Dort, man, what has she taught you? Because I mean, she's the pro. She does it all,
Yeah.
and I've watched podcasts with her in before and stuff, and I've listened to her, and she's just an amazing person, and puts a lot of emphasis on the girls
Yeah.
and whatever she's announcing. But what are some things that you've picked up from her?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been so fortunate to work with her the past several years, when they came to Iowa. And, I remember to this day, I was actually at the state volleyball tournament doing public address announcing. And Erin came up to me and said, "Hey, we're going to have this Dort Mayab. She's going to announce with you. She's going to be great. She's the assistant Iowa women's coach's wife." And, once I met her at it was regionals that year when it was still at the Alliant Energy Powerhouse in Cedar Rapids. That was the first time her and I really got to work together. And just ever since then, it's just been um, so great to learn from her. And I think the biggest things that she's taught me is just, she says things on the mic so confidently, and, people hear her when she has the mic on, and, just I mean, some people think it's just you say a name on a microphone, and while yes, that's true, but like, you want to project, you want to have a little excitement, especially at the finals matches, the bigger, of an announcement that you make, I think it just adds to the environment. And so she's definitely taught me some ways to do that. But I think the other thing too is she's just confident, and obviously a lot of people can come up to us and say, "Oh, you pronounced this person's name wrong," or that's not how you say our town or whatever. And obviously, we want to get everybody's name right. So anytime
Hmm.
anyone does that, we're obviously going to make a note and change it the next time we say it. But, if she butchers something, she just goes on, and it's just, she tries her best and doesn't bat an eye if something's wrong. And I think that's the big thing too. I felt like a sense of, as bad as this is, like not holding on to that perfection, because then it's
Uh-huh.
like, once you hold on to that, then it's like all the other ones after that just are not as great either because you're worried about that one. Just like if, a wrestling match, same thing. If you're
Yep.
not wrestling in the coming matches, staying on a loss or something. But I think just, yeah, she's just been so great. She's definitely helped me find some different opportunities and connections with other female announcers. And I think just, yeah, getting to work with her has been so awesome. And I think it's really special that the athletic union values having two female announcers, in the arena for a girls event. I think that's huge. And it's just highlight of the year for me is definitely working with Dort at the state tournament. So I'm grateful for that opportunity any chance I get.
No, I just sitting here listening to what you're saying, sounds a lot like what I talk about in a wrestling practice. You talked about being confident in what you do. Probably one of the most important skills that we can try to get into our athletes is being confident, and not just on the mat, but being confident in school, being confident in our jobs, being confident in everything really helps out. Whole letting go of a mistake.
Hmm.
Chasing, you can chase perfection, but no one's going to ever be perfect. So
Right.
being able to let that go and move on.
Hmm.
All the girls, you talked about it earlier, the girls that lose in a semifinal and battle back to third, that is probably one of the most difficult things you can do as a wrestler.
Definitely.
But you're showing that that is important to do as an announcer,
Hmm.
as a person that does news articles for girls wrestling, also as in any profession. It's important to
Yeah.
be able to let go of that. So it's good to hear those things and other things, and I'm hoping the girls hear that too.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we kind of talked a little bit about how you got the gig, which is cool that you followed this tournament through all of its stuff. So I won't really dwell anything on there, but you do some freelance work for the area for girls wrestling. And what do you like to do? What do you like to do about writing articles, and or how do you like to write articles? How do you like to go out and see all this? Obviously, you're a wrestling fan, so it's probably easy to do, but
Yeah,
how'd you maybe get into it, and what
sure.
are some of the things that you really like about it?
Yeah, so I graduated from West Delaware in 2014. And it wasn't until my junior or senior year of high school where somebody planted a seed about like journalism and being involved in sports. And so once I kind of did that and did a job shadow with J.R. Ogden, who leads the sports department at the Cedar Rapids Gazette, I kind of knew, this might be something I want to look into. So I then went to Wartburg College in Waverly and went through their journalism program and did Night Vision, which is like a streaming network at Wartburg that's done by Wartburg students. And there I actually was the first female color commentator for football and then the first play-by-play commentator for wrestling. And I think it was at that point where it's like, okay, this sports stuff's pretty cool. So I also had a co-announcer that was female. So we had an all-female announcing team for Night Vision for the Wartburg Wrestling
Oh, that is so
broadcast.
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. So that was really fun to kind of do that and be, obviously Wartburg's pretty good at men's wrestling and now on the women's
Yep.
side too. So just kind of having a front row seat to that action was pretty fun during my college years. And then shortly after I graduated from Wartburg in 2017, I became the first sports editor at the Waverly newspaper, first female sports editor. So covered 9 of the area schools there, and it was just awesome. I think I joined their team in like February of 2018. And then that first girls tournament was in 2019. So
Yep.
I've just kind of always had a love for writing. And once I moved to the Cedar Rapids area a few years ago, I reached out to the Gazette, knowing J.R. Ogden was still in his role, and just asked if they ever need, a freelance writer to cover a game or something. Definitely keep me on the list, just for something fun to do and kind of still stay involved in sports journalism. And it wasn't until last year when I think it was J.R. Ogden and KJ Pilcher had a conversation and thought I'd be a good fit, just knowing my wrestling background coming from West Delaware. And they approached me about strictly covering girls wrestling. And of course, I was all in on it. And it's just been fun to get to know area girls and their wrestling stories and the journeys that they've had. And, some have been, like I'm thinking like, girl, how are you focused on wrestling, with all the stuff that you've gone through or different things. Um, I think just getting to know the wrestlers and letting people know, girls wrestling, there's some really great girls that are competing, on our area schools, within 20 miles of Cedar Rapids. And I get to share a lot of fun things about the girls. I think of one last year, she was a Benton community wrestler who was going into the service and, you know, being able to tell her story about graduating high school early and going on to serve our country was great. Um, I just did one after regionals about the twins from Prairie that both qualified for state this year. One had to
Uh-huh.
stay home last year, but just being able to share all those fun stories. I think probably the one that sticks with me the most would definitely be the one I did at the beginning of this season. It was a wrestler from Independence who had lost her mom last year on the weekend of conference tournament. And, that's pinnacle time, for the season, just because you're on
Oh
the
yeah.
cusp of regionals. And she wasn't going to come off that wrestling mat. She wanted to stay wrestling and knew that wrestling would help her through all of the emotions and the grieving that she needed to do, and definitely found a lot of help from her teammates. But just being able to see those stories and know how special wrestling is to them, just like it is to me, is great. And I think, a lot of that started long time ago at West Delaware for me, just being involved in a high quality wrestling program that, loves having people involved. And for us, it was always a family thing. So to see all of the other girls, either start it with her dad, like Autumn Ellsbury, her dad was really influential on her, and I got to
Yep.
hear that story after she won her state title last week. And, just again, I think wrestling's a huge family, and it's just been a true honor and kind of an unexpected route that I would take to stay in sports journalism.
Yeah, that's really cool. A lot of those names I have had the opportunity to either coach on, an AAU team or, gone somewhere with them. Danny and Autumn
Hmm.
and Malia, they travel to
Yeah.
Florida with me every year. They've become really good friends. Um, Area girl that I was really proud of for you, for Cedar Rapids area, Mackenzie Childers. After last year, getting the concussion
Yes.
during, probably
Hmm.
hands-on favorite to win the tournament, getting a concussion during the tournament, and then coming back this year and finishing up at first. I really like her. She's just a solid kid. She's been on teams of mine when she was just a wee little thing.
Yeah.
So it's cool to watch some of those. Um,
Yeah, no, she's
how
been
about
she's been great. I did a story on her last year. And it was really all about her being an inspiration to her teammates. It wasn't like boasting about her, but she was just proud to like go out and show her teammates how to work hard and how to get after her goals. And, I remember sitting at the head table because I was announcing last year, and her coach comes up to medically withdraw her, and I'm like, your heart just sinks because,
Oh
like
yeah.
big heavy favorite, definitely worked hard and had all the right things going for her, and just obviously one injury can take it all away and
Oh
in an
yeah.
instant. So to see her be on the top of the podium this year and even walking by the head table with a huge smile on her face, I think that was a really solid way for her to go out on her career.
Yeah, no, it's so many cool storylines, and it's fun to cover I love talking to the girls. Obviously, I'm not a professional journalist. I just this actually started with Maylee Ellsbury. So, when you
Okay.
brought up the Ellsburys, I had done Tony's Hager's podcast a few times in the past. And
Sure.
he kind of got away from doing it, and he always said, "Well, you should do something with girls wrestling sometime." And I was talking to Jason Lloyd at AAU, and I said, "Oh, you know what? Why don't I just do a couple interviews with some of the girls I know, and we'll put them on the Facebook page just for fun."
Yeah.
And then I don't know how it happened, but here we are. Here we are about 30, 32, 33 episodes in, and it's so much fun. I, kind of wish I maybe would have done something different with my life because this is absolutely so much fun to do. But, yeah, and I like highlighting stories like yourself. It's not always the champions, you've been involved in wrestling for since you've been in high school,
Yep.
and the part that you're doing is really cool. I think I always love announcers. Anyway,
Mhm.
you're right. The emotion that you guys can
Yeah.
bring to a match is really cool. I've always enjoyed that. So, that's really cool. What about your family? Let's get to know you just a little bit more,
Sure. Yeah.
besides
So
just wrestling.
yeah, graduated from West Delaware, like I said. Wrestling has always been a thing for our family. I'm an only child, but all of my boy cousins had wrestled for West Delaware. Um, we didn't have girls wrestling. I mean, it really wasn't even thought of, when I was going through high school. There were a
Yep.
few girls on some boys teams, but nothing like what it is now. And we're always involved in West Delaware athletics. My dad and his brother kind of do football. My uncle announces at football, and then my dad is his spotter, so they kind of tag team. And they kind of took after their father, who was the announcer for West Delaware football for many, many years before he passed away in 2003. So, kind of being on this announcing kick, I feel so honored that it's kind of, building on his legacy that he left and being such a avid part of West Delaware sports. And then my uncle also announces for the West Delaware boys wrestling team. Um, and similarly, just kind of keeping it in the family has definitely been fun. I think West Delaware wrestling has been a huge part of my life in the sense that that's where my love for wrestling all started. I remember to this day, still in our upper gym, which is teeny compared to the newer gym that they have now, but
Yeah.
they had their whole big wrestling tournament, and my dad would be working a table and the runners would bring the bout sheets over, and I'd be the one writing red or green on who was going to be the ankle band. Not anything that needed to be on the bout sheet, but it was just about
Yep.
being at the table, working with my dad, and just, yeah, being involved. And then it was my eighth grade year. We were on our way to a wrestling meet, and my mom got a phone call from my aunt that they were looking for statistician help. So I started doing it actually my eighth grade year, which was kind of a wild year because my younger cousin was a team manager, and then my older cousin was in his senior season. So there was three Coles all part of the West Delaware wrestling program in one year. So that was pretty fun.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, I just, we're still actively involved. Matter of fact, this weekend on February 15th, we're having the first girls youth wrestling tournament at West Delaware. And they've asked
Very
me to be
good.
part of that, either announcing or working a table. They're not quite sure which route, but I'm happy to be there in any way that I can be. So, but yeah, it's just been West Delaware's been a great place for me to kind of grow and start having that love for sports. And I know for a fact that just the West Delaware wrestling program is great in the sense that it teaches you a lot of life lessons, even if you're not ever strapping on a singlet or headgear or anything, you still learn from it. And I think the biggest thing is just, always striving to be your best. I know that can mean different to a lot of people, but I think that always started from being around athletics and especially West Delaware. And I think that's just a huge kudos to the program that they've built over the years and continue to have. And it's been exciting to see how that's all gone for them. So,
Very good. Yeah, I think I might see if I can't twist your arm a little bit and see if we in a few weeks we can't get you to come down to the Powerhouse Arena and maybe help us with some AAU state stuff. I think it would be
yeah,
really fun to have you involved. You know the area, so we'd be all
yeah,
right. You can
yeah.
find your way around there, I'm sure. Maybe
Been
not
there
hit
a few
that.
times.
Yeah, so my biggest gripe with Cedar Rapids is my daughter went to school there for about 2 years, and about every three weeks
Okay.
I would get a ticket in the mail from that one spot where you go from 65 to 55 and they have the cameras there.
Yep.
And I think I've paid the city of Cedar Rapids more money out of that one spot and
Yeah.
stuff. So I don't know. That's my only gripe about Cedar Rapids that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah,
But no.
supposedly they've cut down on those, but I've gotten two since I've lived here, so it happens to all of us, I feel
Oh
like.
man, I'd call her up and say, Kaylee, you gotta learn, slow down. Well, Dad, I gotta make my exit. Like, well, you can get behind that car just as easy as getting ahead of it. So no. Um, on all of my podcasts, I do like to get to know people just in
Sure.
different ways and stuff. So I have fun questions, stupid
Yeah,
questions. You've been around the sport of wrestling, so you can actually ask the same as the girls. And I'll start easy and we'll just get to know you as a
perfect.
person a little bit.
Yeah.
What's your favorite color?
Favorite color is definitely orange. No surprise, all three of well, four of my schools that have always had the color orange in them. So West Delaware, Wartburg, and then I got my master's degree from the University of Florida. So
Nice.
huge orange,
Yes.
orange fan for sure.
I have a lot of orange and black in my repertoire too from
I bet you do.
Ridgeview. Never used to, but I do now. So um as far as pets, and I always ask the girls cats and dogs, but I'm not going to limit it to cats or dogs. If you wanted to go out and get yourself a new pet tonight, what would you go get?
Hmm. I don't have any pets. I've never had pets really. Um, if anything, probably a cat because I feel like as the cop out answer this might be, they're easy to take care of and
Yep.
sometimes I'm not home all that often, like last weekend. So, um, that would be that'd be the one I would probably go with.
All right. Are you a big movie person? Do you like movies?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a favorite, favorite movie that you can think of, or what or genre of movies that you really watch a lot of?
Um, I mean, I obviously I think any wrestling fan would side with Vision Quest, but that's a great movie. I also like the movie Reversal. I think that's a great one if we're sticking with wrestling ones.
It can
Um,
be anything. Any
yeah,
movie you like.
I'm gonna say probably anything with Melissa McCarthy would be like
Oh,
my top. So comedies
yeah.
like Identity Thief is a classic. I can put that on and laugh as much as I did the first time that I watched it. And yeah, I would go with anything with her. They're usually lighthearted and pretty funny. So,
Yeah, that's that. Love her movies. I love
uh-huh.
movies anyway. But so you mentioned Vision Quest, and I'll just tell this little story because it's fun for me to tell. So just being online a lot, I actually got to know Shoot in the movie.
Oh,
Um, um, uh, Frank Jasper is his real name,
yeah.
and he does I think physical therapy and things like that now in his
Oh, wow.
post career and stuff. So we watch 2 years in a row we watched Vision Quest for our Christmas party, and
Okay.
actually had Shoot actually sent video messages to our girls wrestling team. So
Oh my gosh,
that's
that is awesome.
and got the signed autograph picture of him carrying the big log up the steps. So
Oh
so
yeah,
our girls are big Vision Quest fans as well.
that's
Um,
awesome.
do you got time to stream any TV shows? Do you watch any series lately or not?
Hmm, not really. Not really. I mean, if anything, like Friday Night Lights is always good. That's always like my background noise show because I've seen it probably 8 times. But All American's really good. I would say that's like my one that's still putting out new episodes that I like.
Nice.
So
Yep.
that one's
I
good.
must have way too much time on my hands because I'm constantly watching some TV show, whether or not. So it's mostly for me just to kind of get some different ideas of what I need to be watching and stuff.
Uh-huh.
One thing I absolutely love, and we're going to stick with the TV theme for one more question here. I love cartoons. I
Okay.
love adult cartoons. I love kids cartoons. I watch Family Guy. I watch South Park. Bluey. If you haven't watched Bluey
Oh
yet,
yeah.
it's by far the greatest. It's one of the best little series I've ever watched. Do you have a favorite cartoon from either childhood or now?
Hmm. I've seen Bluey because I have some friends that have littles in their life, but I've not watched many of those. Um, oh, favorite cartoon. I mean, I feel like I was in Powerpuff Girls when I was younger. I feel like I always watched that. Or Fairly Odd Parents was another one.
A fine
Um,
choice. Yes, that's about the you're
yeah.
right in their same age group of my children. So
Okay.
I watched a lot of that stuff too myself. So Fairly Odd Parents crack me up.
Yeah. I would say, I guess, best TV show, like aside from cartoons, but like still kind of my youth is Saved by the Bell. It was
Oh
always
yeah,
always good. I can recite close to a lot of those episodes, and
yeah.
that was something I always watched with my dad before school in the
Hmm.
mornings, and still watch it today, and we still quote it like we watched it 2 weeks ago. So
Nice.
that'd
Yeah,
probably be my all-time favorite TV show if I
very
had to
nice. I have the similar. On the other side of that, I watched every morning before school with my daughters too. So
pick.
that's
Okay.
kind of cool. Um, you get a free vacation wherever you want to go in the world. Where are you hopping in the plane and going?
I would have said Hawaii a few years ago, but I went a few years ago. So I'd rule that out. Probably Ireland. And
Ooh,
everybody always asks me, why do you always say that? And I'm like, because, well, one is my birthday's on St. Patrick's Day. So a
okay.
little bit there. But then my mom's side of the family, her stepmom has a lot of Irish heritage, and my grandma on my dad's side, her last name is Ryan, so a very Irish name as well. So just kind of the family heritage of that Irish thing has been a big reason why I want to go to Ireland. My aunt had gone probably close to 10 years ago now and said it was so great to see, their culture and just the different sites and different things, and not necessarily being a obviously it's hugely populated, but not
Yeah.
the hustle and bustle of like LA or, stuff like that. So Just somewhere
Okay.
different that a lot of people
Yeah.
don't choose to. So,
Have you, over your wrestling career, have you ran into any of the Peaches, Millie or
yes.
their
Yep.
mom's name is Helen, and
Yes.
she is actually from Ireland. She's very
Yes. I think
Irish.
somebody told me that a while back, and um, yeah, because I feel like for several years there was always a peach wrestling, so
Yep.
they
Yes.
definitely have a strong wrestling pedigree for sure.
Oh yeah. And just fun to listen to their mom talk.
Yes.
Love that accent.
Yeah.
Um, what is your favorite genre of music?
Hmm. I feel like I'm a mixed bag when it comes to music because a while back I just had to put a playlist on my Spotify of music that I just like to listen to, and some days it's country and some days it's pop and rap and just never know what it's gonna be. But if I had to pick like a singer that I like, I would go with Andy Grammer. Um,
Oh,
he's one that's just like his music is just all about like his life story and overcoming hard times. And there have been a lot of great songs of his that I've resonated with over the years. And I've actually turned it into a tradition with my best friend. Her and I go to any concert that we can that's close to here. So I would definitely go with Andy Grammer
I
for sure.
I like him a lot too. There is a video of him singing with the kids. I can't remember in New York. It's one of those. Have you
It like
seen?
warms my heart every time I see it. There's a
Yes,
few different ones that he has going around, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
I absolutely love those. I love that. I can't remember which it's public school something in New York, and they have a
Yeah.
ton of videos. But he's got one. It's yeah, it's a fantastic song.
Hmm.
A lot of times I'll ask the girls, if they're listening to music prior to a match, and kind of match ritual. I'm gonna guess you kind of have to get yourself in the mind frame, to
Yeah.
announce too.
Yeah.
Especially the state tournament. That's a big deal. Is there something that you and or Dor or was there something you guys do to get kind of in the mood, in the frame of mind, flip that switch? Is there something you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. No, I definitely whether or not it's a ritual, it might be more of a routine, but usually I'm always there at least an hour before just because I don't like to come in last minute, like rush in and everything. And definitely have to have my coffee for the girls' state tournament days for sure because they're long days, but they're awesome days. I think the biggest thing is we just talk about, as weird as this is, life, or like we just talk about things that don't necessarily have to do with announcing, just to kind of clear our mind for a little bit. And then once it gets
Huh?
closer to, we assign like who's reading this read, who's doing this, and everything. So I think it's good to kind of have that mix of, kind of stop thinking about announcing for a while and then you just roll right into it and have a clear mind and are ready for the day.
All right. So I'm going to put you in the coaching chair now,
Okay.
and we're in the second period, and I'm going to take away defer as one of your options. Uh, we're flipping the coin, and it lands on red, and that happens to be your athlete's color. What's your choice? What's your go-to choice, do you think?
So it's funny you ask this question because I think I tweeted something at regionals about like these girls are not afraid to choose top. And I
Hmm.
don't know why, but that's just so exciting to me because they know at that point they either have to turn them or, let them go and then you have to get a takedown. So
Yep.
I would definitely choose top just for that reason,
Nice.
just because
Very
it's,
nice.
you know,
Because you're a pinner.
yeah, they have no
You're a
fear.
pinner.
They just go for it and either try to turn
Yeah.
them, and a lot of them do. They are successful, and that's always fun. And I think what's really interesting is when they do it when they're down like a lot of points, and then somehow they, even with the 4 point near fall now, or even an escape and a 3 point takedown, like points can add up really, really fast. And especially if, you get a few back points, you're going to be ahead
It's
probably as long as you weren't
it's
down too
cr-
far.
the new scoring system. Oh, it is crazy
It is
how
fun.
fast
Yeah.
I've looked up and gone, how are we down by 10 points? It's like what?
Right.
It is crazy
It's
how fast the scores go.
yeah, it's wild. And I remember when they were talking about the 3 point takedown, I was totally against it. I was like, you're gonna ruin wrestling, like hearing all these people yell two and everything else. And But the more I watch it, I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, and
Mhm.
if you take somebody down and get a 4 point near fall, you're, a point away from a major already. And
Yeah, you're
it's
you're in a
awesome.
commanding lead.
Yeah.
And then I
The
also
sport
like
has
the
been
fact
fun.
that they've put an emphasis on not staying on the mat, circling back in and
Yep.
keeping the match going instead of walking off. Those are stall calls now, and I'm waiting for
Right.
the time when we make that a point, just like freestyle.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably the next step on that. And I guess speaking of that, do you have a preference on freestyle, folk style? I'll even throw in Greco.
Hmm. I, so it wasn't until I got connected with Wartburg's women's team. Obviously, being an alum, like I love Wartburg. And when they
Hmm.
got women's wrestling, I hadn't really watched a whole lot of freestyle other than what was in the Olympics, just because not many colleges around here had it. And other than if I worked a few freestyle tournaments at West Delaware from time to time, but um, I mean, last night I watched William Penn and Grandview, the women's duel, and it was just like, this is just awesome. Like, always wanting action, and just
Hmm.
the freestyle, I feel like also goes by a little quicker than folk style. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I love the high schoolers wrestling folk style.
Hmm.
Um, and then I love the college and the Olympics being freestyle, but I know that's going to cause havoc for some people. If they want to go to the college level and they're new to the sport, they obviously have to learn freestyle. That's the only
Yeah.
option for them. Um, but I would say it's like a tie, honestly, between freestyle and folk style.
Yeah, I like them both. I have different reasons for liking. Obviously I'm older. I did not do a lot of freestyle. I maybe
Hmm.
wrestled. I maybe wrestled three or four freestyle events in my entire wrestling career. I do help coach at BVs, on the club side. So I
Sure.
know I understand the sport. But God, I love the control of folk style. I love
Uh-huh.
the just the that control portion of it. Freestyle's fun, man. There's a lot of points scored in a hurry, so
There is.
I do like watching it. I think there's room for both,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I think there always will be.
Yep.
Um, if I were to hand you a magic wand and say you can change one thing about wrestling, anything you want, what are you going to change?
Oh. I feel like wrestling's awesome the way it is, but man, that's a good question.
I stole that question from somebody, by the way, so I don't think anybody's 100% original.
I would say, hmm, oh, I feel like I'll say like I feel sometimes seeing how much a match takes a toll on somebody, especially I feel like the heavyweights, especially, you see them sweat sometimes a lot more than, your lightweights do.
Yeah,
But I don't know if there would be a way to make it not necessarily even, but like there just wouldn't be such that physically taxing of wrestling because I feel like people's careers would last longer. But, also feel like how would you make that work? Sometimes that's the
yeah,
best part about wrestling, seeing these, 190s go at it and, so I think just yeah, probably the physicality of it. Obviously it would probably cut back on the number of injuries too.
mhm,
Um, but at the same time, that's a great part of the sport too. So that's a tough question.
yeah. So here's the question for you: were you around at all? So I'm trying to figure out when the rule changed, when we started picking what weight we're starting at instead of starting at the lowest weight and ending at heavyweight. Because I absolutely loved the build, and it always came down to heavyweight, and
Uh-huh.
now, man, and I am not a technical person in my like. I thank God I have like great coaches that keep track of all this stuff for me, because like we'll end a meet at 135, and I'm like, it just doesn't seem right to me that we're
Yeah.
ending at 135 because I grew up. The little guys are out first, and we end with the heavyweight.
Hmm.
I think that's something I would change as we'd go back to that rule. But did you watch
Yeah.
that, or were you around for those years, or did they always pick when they
I
started?
I was in school when that happened because I remember West Delaware having ping pong balls with the weights on them when
Nice.
it first came out. That was
Uh-huh.
our magical drawing system. But I definitely agree. Like having it start at the lower weights and, saving it for the heavyweights is great. But I think back to like, the West Delaware Independence duel this year, it was a middleweight that had to save the meet,
Uh-huh.
and rarely, aside from, maybe tournaments, do they get the chance to play that hero spot.
Yeah.
So it's definitely mixed feelings, but I think it was always, you always waited until the very end for the heavyweights to, duke it out in some close duels um but yeah, I think it's definitely interesting when they switch to that because it's kind of can be anybody's night, and I think that's true
Yeah.
to the sport. And you can have a bad night or you can, upset a number one, and it's awesome.
So this is a newer question I just started asking the girls. And is there someone that and I might be able to guess from just our conversations you look up to, you watch, you aspire to be like, there's, so many good female wrestlers that the girls look at, but, or is there something you aspire to get to announce? Maybe there's something that
Sure.
you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, Dort definitely is a person that I look up to, and just seeing all of the great events that she's been able to announce, hopefully someday I'll see some similar opportunities. But I know I'll have to work hard for it, and it's getting the off the wall announcing gigs, and um, just finding those connections and being connected with people that are female announcers, I think is always great. That's kind of how I got into doing UNI volleyball and UNI softball. So wrestling season was right in the middle of those two. And actually last weekend I did the girls state tournament Thursday, Friday, and then went to UNI Saturday, Sunday and did 7 softball games,
Oh,
for
wow.
their Uni Dome tournament. So that was a wild
Wow.
weekend. But again, it wouldn't be possible without other female announcers providing those connections and letting me know of what potential opportunities are there. Um, I would say to, just I'd love to do a national tournament someday. I think that would be awesome. Just putting women's wrestling on a national stage, I think is huge. Um, and, I think someday I'll probably get there. It's just a matter of, sticking to it and keep improving, I think is the big thing. Because I know I don't announce the same way I did at Waverly in 2020. I feel like I've definitely grown and gotten better since then. I've heard a lot of positive feedback from people about announcing, both Dort and I. And I think that's great feedback to hear too. And obviously we take, the negative for what it is, and know that if it's definitely a way to improve, we're going to try to improve and make it the best possible product we can. Um, but I think too, and this might seem a little odd, but like all of the wrestlers that I've had a chance to talk to, I mean, just are great girls and humans and, are doing all of the right things, and just seeing their love for wrestling and just how it was with me. Just seeing all of the work that they put into it just makes me want to be part of the sport even more. And I know that I'll have a lot of opportunities in the future that I'm hopeful to see come to fruition. So,
Yeah, I think you guys did a fantastic job. And like I said, I finally actually got to sit down and watch and hear and everything.
yeah.
So, and 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 yeah, it was a good experience, very good experience for me this year. I was really excited about it. Um, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say some final thoughts for the day, and then we'll wrap her up. And we've been on about we're right around that hour mark, and that always seems like about the perfect amount of time
Yeah.
for a podcast. So go ahead and give us some final thoughts on whatever you like.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm definitely grateful for wrestling. I think it's a sport that has changed my life immensely. It started, like I've said, at West Delaware, and got to experience it at Wartburg, and that was fun being part of national champions and covering Wartburg when they won nationals, and getting to meet so many people there. And then just staying involved with it from being a sports journalist or an announcer. I think I just absolutely love wrestling, and I think it's just obviously the greatest sport in the world. But I think one thing that makes it really special is the bond that I get to share with my dad over the sport. I mean, there's countless times where him and I are texting each other about, did you see so and so beat so and so last night? Or, we're going to the UNI Iowa State duel on
Oh,
Sunday. We love going to sporting events like that together. We went to national duels at the Uni Dome in January, and just being able to share that sport with him, I think is awesome. He's definitely been an inspiration in my life and is always proud when I, either find a new announcing gig or, finally beat him at knowing some sort of scoop about wrestling because he always seems to know it before I do. But and just yeah, kind of just being involved in wrestling is great and something that I've cherished for many, many years, and I know I'll cherish it for many more to come. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on today. And like I said, I love meeting new people in the sport and all the aspects of the sport. I like having coaches on, officials. I've had Nadine on, and things
yeah.
like that. So, it's really, really fun to have an announcer and see just a different perspective on it. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button. Why don't you stick around for just a second?